There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, now let me mute, and then you can unmute, but then I'll just hear one person at a time. Okay, Gary, so you had a comment. This is the variety class musical workshop that we're doing, and we're discussing the feature of the fill. So, Gary,
I'm just saying that when you mentioned the right foot switch is the fill or the left touch bar is the fill, I just wanted to say that those are the default positions for the fill. You can change it to be the left foot switch, and
correct.
change it to the right touch bar, whatever.
Correct.
Like I
You,
know for myself, I have the left foot switch as the fill because I use the right foot switch to be the next preset.
yes, I do as well. Well, I don't have it on the left. I use the touch bar for that very reason because I advance presets with my right foot switch. Yes, you can have it on the left or right touch bar. You can have it on the left or right kick switch. You can have it on either of the pedals, natural or black. So there's lots of places. Once you have a foot switch, and this is for the SD models and the Easy line, once you have a foot switch that does the fill, you no longer have to reach up and touch the button. That's a real advantage because whichever hand you do it with, which is probably going to be your left hand, when you reach up and touch the button, then you have to get your left hand back in its place again. So once you have the foot switch, it's a lot easier that you don't have to pick up your hands or worry about any of that. Make sense? Everybody good? Okay. So when do you use the fill? The short answer that I've heard from a lot of people is anytime you want. But there is some logic that can go into it as well if you want to use it effectively and you want the instrument to work for you. So sometimes somebody will have their foot in the pedal and their shoe will be against the fill, and the whole time you're playing the fill is going, and that gets a little bit much. So always, just glance at the light to see, is the fill activated? If my foot's stuck on it, it's going to keep going, 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 going till I let go of it, and that we probably don't want to do. But the first and easiest time to use the fill, which will get you out of a lot of trouble, is when you lose your place in the music. We all get to a point where we're looking up and looking down and doing everything that we do, and sometimes we can look back up at the music and suddenly we've lost our place. Well, immediately hit the fill, because then the fill's filling in. It's doing a nice little rhythm break depending on which music style you're on, and that gives you a moment or two measures if you keep your foot on the fill or your thumb on the fill. It gives you time to find your place back in the music. That's the first time. Next time you can use it is on a tie or a rest. If you have a lot of rests or you have a long tie, let's say you have 6 beats of a tie. So I don't hold the tie when I'm playing. I take my hand off the melody note and use the fill, and I let the instrument work for me, which I think is great. I don't have to hold the tie. What I do have to do is I have to wait for the tie or the rests. So if I have a quarter rest and a half rest, that's 3 beats. I have to wait or else I'm going to be off the beat. So the way to get you to wait is to hit that fill wherever you're using it, and then watch the lights and then have yourself come back in at that time. So ties and rests and long breaks, those are another good time to apply the fill. Some people like to apply the fill when they do a no chord. That's NC, no chord. So they'll have something going extra, because it's going to be extra, with the drummer. However, you took out all the instrumentation, as we call the registrative background. We take all that out, so now all we're doing is hearing a drummer, and I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute. When you change your sounds, If you utilize the fill to change your sound, it bides you time to push a different button, whatever you're going to do. And then when you come back in, you come back in with a new sound, which is terrific. Great way to use the fill. Um, Here's a great one for people. We always tend to get off the beat when we have to turn the page, which is why we see a lot of people, they'll make a copy of the third page because they don't want to have to turn the page. Well, the fill is a great thing to use when you're turning a page because it bides you a measure of extra sounds in the drum pattern so that you can turn your page, and then when it's time for the fill to be finished, you can come back in on the first beat of the next measure. Make sense? Another time is when you are doing, sometimes we have a song that really doesn't have a bridge, but the actual main part of the song repeats. We see that a lot in the earlier books, especially the Lowry Black Songbook, where there's not really a bridge. There's not a middle section of the song, but after you've played the main part of the song, on the second page, you play it again. That's a great time to use the fill, to let it work for you. And my favorite that almost always, I'm going to say 99% of the time, I use the fill before I hit the ending. Now, something interesting about that. If you touch the ending and you're on the fill, the ending will not begin until the fill is complete. So once you've activated the fill, you need to get off of it so that the ending will then take over. But as long as that fill is going, the ending can't end. The fill overrides the ending. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Good. That being said, I like it to use it prior to the ending. And the reason is the endings are great. I mean, I'm a real advocate of intros and endings because, the first thing you say is what happens in an introduction is fabulous. What happens in an ending is wonderful. What happens in the middle doesn't matter. It helps us to get away with things. But the fill, if you use it and then go to the ending, it gives it a little bit more drawn out personality. And then the ending comes in and activates that. And I'm going to go back to that 6/8 march again for a moment. And I want you to hear the fill, first of all. Let's see if I have, you can have a good view here. That's the fill. And this happens to be for this particular 6/8 rhythm. And my light is lit, if you can see it. Now when I let go of my thumb, it finished the measure, and then the instrumentation comes back in. I'll activate the fill and then push the ending, and you can hear what a difference that makes. And take your time. Let it go 2 measures if you want. And here comes the ending. Make sense? So if you're not doing that, that's a good way to start using your instrument to work for you and apply that fill before you do your ending. Now, I will say on the SDs, you have to finish the fill before you hit the ending. On other instruments in the midline and the upper end line, you don't. You can activate the fill, push the ending. When you get off of the fill, the ending will kick right in. On the early SD instruments, you need to do the fill and then let go of it and then push the ending, and the ending will activate. Make sense? Okay. Any questions so far? Let's take a look at some more. This is a great one people like. I'm going to do a little train Here we go. I'm always losing my glasses. All right, here we are. This is very distinctive, this fill. And you have to know when to use it to put it to really good use. Oh, it's a train. My fill, my ending, let go of the fill. How's that? So in some of those in some of those country sounds that you play, songs that you play, you'll have a specific time when you do want to hear that train, and that comes on the train music style, if you will. Now I'm going to go to ballad, and I'm going to use my cat memories. This is a very interesting fill because what it does is it plays arpeggios. So not only is it the drummer being filled in with that, but it's activating lots of great sounds that unless you knew how to do all this, you would not be able to do that. But with the touch of a button or a touch bar, we can do it. Listen to this. Phil. Questions? Must have a lot of brilliant people on this group. So far, so good. Wonderful. If you've just joined us, which a couple have, welcome. I'm Joanie, and we're doing a virtual music class today. And we are featuring the fill, which is a feature on your instrument that can work for you, and that's what we want it to do. So again, let's review when to use the fill, because I think that's the biggest question. Well, I just don't know when to use it. And the short answer is always anytime you want, but there is some logic to it as well. When you lose your place, guaranteed. And what happens, especially with beginners, what happens is when you lose your place, you're so flustered about losing your place that you don't think to use the fill. You kind of have to think about that. Oh, let me hit the fill and now I'll find my place. So that's a really good time to do it. On any long tie or rest, we want to use the fill. Okay? on a note chord, NC, that will usually activate a drum fill, which is very good. It works for you. It's providing extra, which is super. That's what we want. But not the orchestration, because we took the orchestration out with a note chord. When you change your sounds, beautiful. Beautiful time to do it. That buys you time to touch the button that you want to get a new and different sound. So that's a great time to do it, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. When you have to turn your page, oh boy, that's always a handful. And generally what I will say, if you are a beginner to an intermediate level player, then you probably want to use the fill for 2 measures, because the first measure, you're going to turn the page. The second measure, your eye is going to get it back adjusted to the top of the page and get ready to come in. If you only do it for 1 measure when you're turning a page, quite often you will come in on the wrong beat. So you want to be careful of that. Take the liberty of 2 measures. It's going to sound great. Has nothing to do with the abilities of our fingers at all. It's just an extra part of music that will make you sound terrific. Also, when a song repeats, or before you go to the bridge of a song, activate the fill so you lead into it. Does that make sense? Use it for the bridge, or when the song repeats a second time, use it in between there. It just gives it a little variation, and it works for you. It'll make you sound terrific. And my favorite is always, before I hit the ending, I always use the fill. And that's a great place to do it, because it just really gives it some spark. I'm going to show you one now of changing sounds. I'm going to go to Spots of Ink. I tried to choose rhythms that maybe you're not as used to hearing. Spots of Ink, there you are. Here we go. I did that time. Questions?
What was the name of that song?
You're not making me work very hard today.
Oh, you're making sense. It's understandable.
Well, that's unusual. It is a lot of fun though, and I wanted to give you a lot of different music, so you can enjoy yourself at a listening concert level, so to speak, at the same thing. So hopefully you're enjoying the music you're hearing. And what was the question?
What was the name of that song you just played?
I don't
I
know
don't
why.
know why I love you like
I
I
don't
do.
know why. I love you like
I
do.
don't know why I love you. I just do. That's right. And I do to all of you. That's Spots of Ink did that. Ink spots. And the rhythm was Spots of Ink. Another question? No? I like when I do some styling classes, of course, in the store and on Zoom as well. And I like to, for a long time, tell people where to insert the fill, because sometimes it's just a matter of you got your right hand going, you got your left hand going, you're trying to listen to the beats, everything's going on, and you don't think about the fill. So I have them jotted in. Here's where you want to do your fill. And then after a while, in some classes, like in intermediate levels coming up today, this afternoon, we will look at the music and I will have them tell me where would be a good place to use the fill. I don't like to do it just random. I like to have in my head where I want to use it. Because number one, I want it to be effective. I want to be able to really hear it. So if I'm playing, a busy song with a lot of notes and I use the fill, it might not be as effective as if I wait, pick up my hand, then use the fill. Now it's effective and we can hear something different going on. And I like that idea a lot. So I do think about where I want to put it. But the biggest places are whenever you have to wait for beats. That's perfect
Hungry,
time.
Matt.
Another place that a lot of people do the fill is prior to doing transpose.
He missed lunch.
And that's possible too. I'm going to mute everyone because I've got some background sounds going on here. There we go. So prior to transposing, we often will use the fill as well. Just gives it a little extra before you do your transposing. Make sense? Okay. All right, let's take a look at some more music here.
Joanie,
Yes.
I had a question. If
Oh,
you're going
good.
to use if you're going to use it going into a transpose, do you do the fill on the last note before you hit the transpose, or how does that? I'm not sure I understand how you do that exactly.
If I'm going to do it before the transpose, then I would want a measure of the fill first. And then when the measure's complete, then do your transpose. And now you're going to come back in with it into a new key. Good question.
Okay.
Does that make sense for you?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good. You're very welcome. Another question? No? Okay. Let's do some more music. I'm going to go to Jingle Jangles here on my Broadway rhythms. And I want to slow it down a little bit so you can hear how it works. Get ready. You only have 10 months to go. Here's the fill. Little virtuoso to join that harp there. Great. So each one, I find it very fascinating that each music style does something different. So it's not repetitive. You know, back in the day, and I'm talking way, way back, all we had was a little background that did boom chicky boom. That's all it did. We didn't have any of what we have in today's technology. So I continue to be impressed with the different patterns of what the fill can do. And again, this is making the instrument work for you. That's what you want to do. I don't want to depend on my ability of my fingers. You know, today might be a good day, it might be a not so good day as far as your fingers go. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they don't. That's true for everyone. But I want the instrument to work as hard as it can to benefit me and make me sound really good. And I think that is a really good feature that gets a little blown off, so to speak. It doesn't get talked about. And I think the reason for that is because in most situations we just assume, which we should not do, that you'll just be doing the fill. And that's not a good assumption to make, because either you're new or you didn't think about it or you hate that foot switch and so you're not sure how to activate it. I mean, there can be a lot of reasons why it doesn't get used as much as it could, especially prior to an ending, which I think is really super. Question? I see a question, but I don't hear a question. Jeannie Marie.
Yeah. How, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How does the fill correspond with your golden harp? Because sometimes my fill sounds better than my golden harp when I should be playing golden harp supposedly. So, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes when I play my fill sounds much better than my golden harp would sound in that spot when I supposedly should be putting my golden harp in there. I'm on a fanfare.
Okay. Well, that's a very good question, because your golden harp is going to be just that. It's going to be golden harp. It's going to be an arpeggio, either up, down, guitar pattern, banjo pattern, whatever you choose it to be. It's just going to be that pattern. But when you use the fill, like in the case of Jingle Jangles, it was doing a little harp background, but it also varies the drum pattern. It's a rhythm break in the music. And so that's going to have more going on during that time than the golden harp would have going on. Does that make sense, Jeannie?
Right. Well, what would happen if I would turn the drums down? Would that affect, obviously it affects something, but would that make the feel sound better or worse, or?
If you turn the drums down
And play the gold,
and you're
play the
using,
fill versus golden harp.
if you turn the drums down and you're using the fill, they're going to be soft. The drum pattern that's extra is going to be softer.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
you don't really want that.
Okay. Makes sense.
Make sense?
Yes.
Good question. Very good question. Anybody else? Okay. Hopefully I'm giving you something to think
Joanie?
about. Yes.
Joanie, do you play pedals at all anymore?
Do I play pedals?
Anymore? You used to do some fancy footwork.
I still play pedals, yes.
Do they
Yes.
ever teach? Do they teach it at all?
No, we don't teach how to play bass pedals. What we do teach is how to use the pedals for other functions, which I think is magnificent, because years ago we didn't have that luxury. You either had to play the bass pedals or you didn't. You had to
Right.
know how to do it. But today you can apply 21 different functions to the pedals, and so we teach to use them. I don't teach. I will help someone privately if they want to take on learning how to play bass pedals, but there's not a real demand for hobbyists to want to play the bass pedals.
Thank you.
I do it for exercise.
You do a good job. I've seen you at HOHs. many times.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you. I enjoy it. It's really fun for me. But whatever the hobby is for you, whether you play bass pedals or not, the hobby should be fun. That's the real important thing about it. And so playing bass pedals for me is really fun. I especially like, I guess I got the reputation when I was with Lowry, but I especially like it when I can play a melody section of the song, a little part of the melody in my feet. Like that's a lot of fun for me. But it shouldn't be frustrating. So if you enjoy it, then great. But if not, let the automatic bass handle it. It'll do a great job, and you don't have to worry about it. Okay? All right, let's do a couple more here. I'm going to go to the cha-cha. Now, I had so much fun with this on Tuesday in our class. I was having a great time. This fill is really fun and interesting because it does the cha-cha-cha. That's what the fill does. So we can really put that in some great places, as you'll notice right now. Cha-cha-cha. Cha-cha-cha. Ta-ta-ta. Pretty neat, huh? Those of you who were on the class Tuesday, I had to do it a little differently so that you wouldn't get bored. So I did some things that we didn't talk about on Tuesday, but that's okay. Oh, that was me playing pedals.
It's a fun one. It's a
Pardon?
fun one. It's a fun one.
Oh, it is. That's a lot of fun to play. Yeah. Any questions? Let's do one more. This is a real fun rhythm too. This is Jumpin' Jazz that we're going to call up here. Where's my Jumpin' Jazz? Let's do it this way. Here we go. And this does a real fun fill as well. And I appreciate you being here very much. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed listening to some good music. And maybe perhaps you could take away some ideas for how to implement and use something that the instrument will do for you. That's fun. That's the great part. So I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thanks for being here. And I'm going to finish up with Jumpin' Jazz. There you go.
Woo! Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Have a wonderful musical day and be blessed. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you much. Thank you very
Bye.
much.
You're very
Thanks,
welcome.
Joanie.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Judy.